No, exactly. So, I was saying this to the doctors backstage. I think one of the key reasons for me to say yes to events like this is because as a mother, I know how difficult it is to get an appointment with the doctors, be it a nutritionist or a pediatrician. So here I get all my questions answered. I have the best of the experts on the panel. It takes care of all my questions, with everything that I need seen to. But you're right, Sachin, because as a mom, the first thing, I think the day that you find out that you're actually pregnant and are going to become a mother, the first thing that you do is you turn to your best friend, which unfortunately today has become Google. And everything is looked at. The child is running a fever, my kid isn't eating her beans, what should I do? Everybody turns, because at the end of the day, there is such an information overload today. The fantastic thing is that there is so much information out there. But it's such an overload that it is very difficult to understand what really comes from a credible source, or it doesn't. And I think for me, over the years with my daughter, I've learned, so between this panel, as you can see, I feel like I've grown in stature today because I'm being part of this initiative and being part of the guild. But these are the experts in the field, and I'm the lab rat, right? Because I'm the mother who actually puts all of this into play. But nothing vouches better than experience. So as a mom raising a kid, raising exactly, a child between the ages that we're talking about, I mean, I've been through the gamut of everything that you could possibly go through. And finding, one source to go to. So I think it's fantastic to actually have an initiative like this, the Abbott's Grow Right initiative, and having the charter and the guild come together. And like the doctors are saying, having a one-stop shop to go to that gives you very clear guidelines of dealing with children during this age group. And it's an invaluable source, which I am pretty sure that mothers today in India will find, will be so, just to have points that, okay, this is what I need to do, this is where I need to go. That said and done, every child is different, so you might have guidelines that come down, but how do you implement that with each child? Because each child relationship is absolutely different. But I think if you have, and I think today what moms will gather is, what are those guidelines? How are they implemented? How are they adapted? And so I'm all ears. I'm very happy to be part of this and provide as much practical, kind of experience as I can.
Well, there's going to be a lot of information that's going to be dispensed that we can take back home.
Yeah, so while making these guidelines, I think Samir, Dharini, we looked at the science behind it, but we also collected our total experience with parents. Because let me tell you, what my books teach me, the mother teaches me much more. So what we sat down and we collectively took our experiences with parents, with their experiences, like what Lara's experienced with her son, what somebody else has experienced with his daughter, and we brought these two things together, the science and the human angle behind it. And hence, this is not just a document of science. It is a document that each one of you can use in actual practice with the solid knowledge that there is science and there is emotion in it.
Well, very beautifully put there that, he's actually got it from the mums, all those, the experiences. But today's kids would say the other way. My mom teaches me a lot. From toddlers would always react like that because when they try to get them off their phone, because the screen time has increased, there's a change in trend and environment as well, because they're so digitally inclined, so the phone access is more and the activity or playground activity has reduced. That does have an impact on a child's growth.
Yeah, so in terms of the time spent in playing versus the time spent indoors behind the screen, there's a total disconnect. And a lot of people blame the lack of open spaces. The last time I was in London, we had the entire ground open. I went to Japan, they have a ground just outside the station. And then I wondered that, are we lacking in open spaces? The answer is actually a no. You step out of Churchgate station and you have the entire Oval Maidan. You step out of VT and you have Cross Maidan. But all of y'all, if you take a trip and visit any of these Maidans, I only find the lower class children playing over there. And they are the only ones who are doing any kind of unstructured play. All my affluent moms and fathers have sent their children for tennis classes. I'm going to ask Lara whether her son goes for tennis classes. So from unstructured play, we have moved on to structured play. And As a result, the fun has gone out of playing. I used to go down and play from 5 to 8 every evening for 3 hours, and I didn't go to any class to learn any sport. And yet, I may not be the Mahesh Bhupati of tennis, but, but I enjoyed my tennis. I enjoyed my games, and it didn't matter actually. You know, when I went out to play in the open air, I developed my gross motor skills. I may have played marbles, but I developed my fine motor skills. I developed how to get along with seniors who are bullies, with juniors, how to take care of small children, how to develop interpersonal relationships, how to learn the rules of the game, waiting for your turn, if somebody pushed you, how to tackle that. So apart from the formal sport that I learned to play, there were a huge number of other things that came automatically. So I think this is where society has made a mistake.
You know, you've actually made us take a walk down the memory lane by telling all these experiences. But realistically, in today's day and age, how does one actually control that screen time, and how does actually get them to get out to play? Because it's difficult to get those kids out.
So I think he's made it very nostalgic, as you said.
Yeah.
Right? And got all of us emotional, and rightly so. That's because, and again, I'm very happy you brought it out very clearly, that you see the lower class and the poor socioeconomic class actually doing it, which means the class which can actually afford to do the right things is not doing it, and that's a very important part. And that the reason for that is because the lower classes perhaps don't have a choice, so they play, but the upper classes want their child to perform. And there's this big gap between play and perform that we have to keep in mind. We put our child, like you said, in all these classes, but we want him to win. Even if he goes for these so-called extracurricular activities, we want him to or her to come first. Now, performance really takes the fun out of the play. And all that he described will not happen. You won't take care of a younger kid there if you are more focused on winning yourself. So though we are all focused on being champions, it's not right to be obsessed with it. But having said that, let me come to something even more sinister and nothing to do with nostalgia or emotion. This is fear. And the fear, and I'm saying this very, very openly and with all accountability, I think screen time today for young kids, 2 years old, 3 years old, is worse than narcotics. I'm saying this openly in a public forum. It's worse than narcotics. I work with children with special needs, and I see so many of them who may have had a little bit of the autism gene, but they trip over on the bad side because they've been exposed to screens ad nauseum. And if I have to share one concern with all of you as fellow citizens, as friends, whatever, not just as a doctor, please do everything in your individual and collective might to spread this message across to society that screens are really going to finish off our children. I have seen children behaving like children with autism because they have absolutely no human connect, because from the time they are 6 months old, they're just glued on to their screens. And when I tell the parents, don't do this, you know what's the commonest excuse they say? Doctor, my child doesn't eat without him seeing these nursery rhymes or the screen. Dr. Dharini is here. I'm sure she'll tell us how to get the children off the screen to the right nutrition. But please understand, even if your kid doesn't so-called eat, none of our kids or anybody in this room, their relatives and neighbors, nobody's kid is undernourished. We can say that for sure. Please, for God's sake, get off this addiction. It's been declared as an addiction abroad. Unfortunately, in India, we don't have this. But the guideline is, please restrict, and especially up to 2 or 3 years of age, no screen time is a recommendation.
Yeah, I think they have to eat with the children at that age, elders. That's very important. And the kids learn to eat as the elders, like make small pieces of food which the child can pick up and eat. And this is very important because they see and learn. We need to keep the screen time out, and it's difficult, but you have to do it. And I think even the school plays a very major role. The school canteens, what food they offer, that also plays a major role, because partly you eat at home, partly people depend on, schools providing lunch or children buying out lunch even at that young age. So moms need to work with schools to give healthy options. And that's very important, because finally it's your children who are going there, and that works a lot. In fact, every school nowadays have a dietitian also. So those schools who don't have dietitians, the moms have to get in touch and have to do it. because vegetables and fruits are missing in children's diet. So we need to bring it in and make it interesting. Like colors is something kids like. So you can take them along to choose. What we do is children are made to be in the drawing room and we are in, doing something else. You think they should not be part of buying things. They should not be part of things. So even in marketing, if you take them, I remember like kids 2-3 years old used to come for the market to pick up, their own tomato or whatever. So the moment they love that, where is the tomato I picked up? Then they eat. So this psychology works a lot. So we should not alienate the children and think they should be only in the drawing room or study room. They should be part of everything in a family.
So moms also need to take up the role of being a dietitian in today's day and age. Yeah?
That's what home science was. They knew innately, they know, and the elders teach them. And where they are singular, we are here to help and handle them.
When you talk about screen time, the focus is of course on time, but there are other aspects. So we say a child who's between 2 and 4 years, the duration of screen time is about an hour and not more than that. But it doesn't apply only to time. It also applies to what the child watches in that 1 hour. The recommendation, as we'll put in our charter, is that it has to be co-watched by a parent, number one. It has to be a quality program. So if you ask me what's a quality program, probably National Geographic. And the parent has to sit with the child and watch and actually explain to the child what is happening. You can have Tom and Jerry, one guy beating up the other, and that comes as a violent message. So the parent has to sit with the child, explain to him the content. Not just that, he has to also explain to the child the relevance in day-to-day life. Because a lot of programs on TV are abstract, and for them to extrapolate it to real life is very difficult. So when I talk about screen time, it's not just time, it's time, quality, and a program that is watched by the parent and explained by him or her.
Yeah. Lara, so much has been spoken about the addiction to screen time. How do you get Saira off?
So I'll tell you, Sajjan, I remember when Saira was born, when she was about 3 months old, she was able to, a 3-month-old child, she was able to unlock an iPad, and when all the apps came up on screen, she knew exactly at 3 months old which app to go to that was hers. So she never opened my calendar or my, anything else, but she would open out the, nursery rhymes or whatever was put on board with her. At 3 months old, and so obviously a parent feels very proud when they're saying, oh, my 3-month-old can unlock the iPad. Yeah. These children today, they're born with these digital gadgets in their hands and things like that. First and foremost, how did she get an iPad in her hand at 3 months old? She didn't walk over and pick it up. So here, again, guilty as charged. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's so much part of our lives that our phones, our iPads, everything are lying right next to us, right with us. So you're on a call, bachcha thoda sa tang kar raha hai, haan theek hai beta, ye lo. You know what I'm saying? So that iPad goes into the hand, keep yourself busy, do whatever. So obviously, at that point of time, it is like, oh my God, look how amazing, she knows how to unlock things like that, But again, going back to what Dr. Sameer and Dr. Mukesh were saying, between that age, that crucial age of 0 to 2, how much time do you allow a child to be exposed to a screen and what kind of screen time? It becomes very easy, like Doc said, when the child is eating, that my kid won't eat unless she's occupied or he's occupied, watching something. Haan, theek hai, let it, she's very small now, Once she gets a little older and can understand, I'll start taking it away from her. That doesn't happen. There's no way that you can tell a 2-year-old child then, sorry beta, you've been watching iPad or television every day during meal time to get you to eat your food. Now it's not allowed. Because then you're going to have to deal with the kind of problems that Dr. Dharani is talking about, which is a child who is a fussy eater, doesn't want to eat, will refuse to eat unless they are occupied. So as a parent, it becomes your prerogative, it's your responsibility. That responsibility starts from day 1. It doesn't start when the child gets to 2, when the child is going to be able to understand better. It doesn't happen. We all know, all of us who have kids now know that our kids are smarter than us. They're just born that way. It's now doctrined into their DNA. So it has to happen right from day 1. And with Saira, I was here previously at a Pediasure event for Abbott, and we were talking about screen time. So till now, Saira is now 7 years old. She has on a regular day, I'm not talking about her summer holidays, where yes, that time is increased by a little bit. But otherwise, on a daily basis, she has a half an hour window. She can use it to watch any kind of screen, whatever it is, whether it's her iPad or a television. All of it amounts to half an hour. None of it is through meal times. And this is something that I learned through the years as a parent to limit that. I put the responsibility into her hands. So at 7, if I want my daughter to get off her iPad and I know that she's had enough and the time is approaching, I ask her, how much longer do you think you want to be on it? And I can promise you 99% of the time, the answer back is, Mama, another 5 minutes. Because for her at 7, 5 minutes is a lot of time. I'm getting 5 minutes to watch my iPad. That's fine. Take your 5 minutes. When it's over, you will switch it off yourself. And that works. It may have become 35 minutes of screen time, but she's taken responsibility into her own hands, and that really, really works. And it's translated into different areas as well with her. So I find for me as a parent, that, like I said, different children, but that kind of really works is to give them that responsibility at a young age. Let them make that decision for themselves. Obviously the day the answer comes back to me, 1 hour more, Mama, then obviously my entire approach to it will be very different.
Then she's got the clock right there.
I think she deserves applause for this. I think it's really wonderful because getting your child to take responsibility is perhaps the most important part that we can do as a parent. Because then this child is going to take care of herself or himself and is not going to depend on you or your MasterCard or debit card for the rest of his or her life. Child becomes independent right then. Coming back to a point she made, which is probably the reason why most parents, so for example, when I say this to the parents, they tell the child, Suna tumne, you heard? Doctor, please tell him not to watch the TV or mobile anymore. So I answer, your kid is intelligent enough to tell me my dad paid for the iPad. Who are you to tell me not to watch it? What does that mean? That means we are the guys who are to blame, not the kids. He didn't buy it. I mean, no kid can afford to buy an iPhone or an iPad. We buy it and we give it because, like she said again, we are very proud that they are able to operate. Now, let me give you a very important insight into behavioral science. And again, that comes from the field that I work with. The example that she mentioned about even a 3-month-old child going and clicking that particular icon and not the other apps, and whatever they're able to do with the phone, if you think of it very calmly, you'll understand it is a repetitive behavior. It's all repetitive patterned behavior. And that is exactly the opposite of human behavior. Because as humans, we are dynamic, our moods change, our expressions change, the way we talk changes. And that is a big problem that these children who are so-called very intelligent at using gadgets, they get programmed to be patterned. And that's why they are very poor at human social interaction. And these are the kids who will not assimilate in a classroom, even in the Montessori or the earlier classes. And you'll have a problem that this child is not mixing around with the others, and then you'll be forced to send in a shadow teacher. It's very important to understand that we want the child to interact with the mother, with the father, to fight, to scream, and yes, to get them to learn responsibility and not to be very intelligent engineers at that age. So perish the thought, your child is not intelligent, it's only a repetitive rat. Please stop it.
Yeah, they're living in a parallel world of their own.
So you have children in houses where there is Alexa. Children refuse to go and interact with other children. They are very happy with their device. And even we as experts, as pediatricians, as developmental pediatricians, are not very clear as to how to handle this phenomenon. But all is not lost. See, we are in an era where gadgets are a part of our life. And they are going to be part of children's life. So banishing it from the life is not possible. So the best solution is the duration, but also the quality. Because it's fascinating how much children can teach you regarding gadgets, regarding their applicability. So it's up to us what you get out of it. So what we do is we guide them in a direction where it's useful for them, useful for us, and yet it doesn't become an obsession, doesn't become a disease.
Just one last thing, and mom bloggers, this is what you're going to be doing 2 years from now. Let me tell you that. The new addiction is going to be, in terms of media and nutrition, is going to be ordering food online. A few days later, another 3-month-old is perhaps going to order burgers. Another 3-month-old, they might order burgers. Because today, you can just go online and order. And I have patients and moms come and tell me that, doctor, you gave me all this great nutritional advice, but my kid just goes on XYZ app and calls food home. How are we going to deal with it? Think about it.
Yeah, besides the digital world, another addiction is junk food, which is the biggest, going to be or already one of the biggest ones. I'm sure the mommies are nodding their head. So you've got all the answers there, and all of this is also in the Growth Right Charter, which will be now disclosed. Grow Right initiative it is, and ladies and gentlemen, with that, we should now be unveiling the Grow Right Charter. Are we ready for this? Yeah, because there's so much information.